All right, everybody, welcome back to the Renowned Leadership Podcast, where we bring you insights and conversations with top experts in leadership, business, entrepreneurship, and personal development. Whether you're a new or seasoned leader, we're here to help you achieve your goals and reach your full potential. Now, before we get started, I want to bring you to one of our latest resources. If you're retiring from the military and stepping into the corporate world, we have a resource that helps you prepare to start your new corporate career and make the transition smoother. Our specially designed checklist for military veterans is available for download on our website, renownedleadership.com. So make sure you take advantage of this tool to ensure your successful transition into your new role. In addition, we're also really excited to announce our partnership with the Career Winners Circle, or CWC. They have a roster of top-notch executive coaches and an amazing pool of resources for their clients. To learn more about CWC and how they can help you on your leadership journey, visit their website, careerwinnercircle.com. And if you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, take the next step in your journey, schedule a complimentary coaching consultation with us or me at renownedleadership.com. We're here to help you achieve your goals and take your leadership to the next level. So welcome back, everybody, to the journey of the workplace hero, from average employee to outstanding performer. This is a 10-episode podcast series that is specifically designed to just help you take your career to the next level and become a hero of your workplace. If you're ready to break away from the crowd and become a standout performer in your workplace, this series is 100% for you. With topics ranging from leadership and communication to time management, and far beyond that, our expert guests will share their insights and expertise to guide you on your journey to becoming a workplace hero. So get ready to unleash your full potential and transform into the workplace hero your workplace needs. With all that being said, everybody, I am so excited to bring you guys our next guest this week, and she is a really special treat for you guys. She's a good friend of mine. She's a board certified physician and a clinical psychologist as well. And she's here to talk to us for the next 3 weeks. Actually, we're going to be talking about anxiety, stress, depression in your personal life and in the workplace as leaders and employees. And we're going to be going over tips and tricks on how to diffuse these things in our lives, and how to identify when it's becoming a problem. So I really hope you guys are going to enjoy and get a lot out of this conversation with Dr. Christy Walter. She has an amazing program called, you can check out her website, it's doggonedepression.com. And she has an amazing program where she teaches you to deal with anxiety. And it's all online based learning, and she's getting results in months rather than years of the traditional therapy. So if you guys are struggling, or you know someone that's struggling, I highly recommend you go to doggonedepression.com, check out her website and her program, and get yourself or the people in your loved ones, the people in your life, get them the help that they need, and get them introduced to this really interactive and amazing program that Dr. Christy has created. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into our topic for the day, which is anxiety. I give you Dr. Christy Walter, and so here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Renowned Leadership Podcast. My name is Stephen Morris, and I'm your host. And again, this week, we are joined by the amazing Dr. Christy. Dr. Christy, how you doing today? You excited?
I'm excited. I'm
Fantastic.
excited. Thank you for having me back.
Of course. And today we're going to be talking about navigating stress, especially as a leader, understanding it and managing the pressure that comes with your job. Because let's be honest, and I know you know this because if you haven't listened to our last episode, Dr. Christy talked a little bit about her professional experience where you are a clinical physician in an ER, a trauma
Right.
doctor. Trauma,
I'm
yeah.
an
So
emergency medicine doctor. Right.
emergency medicine doctor. So I don't get any more stressful than that, right? Because people's lives depend on you not making mistakes. So I mean that's about as stressful of a job as it can get. Maybe a brain surgeon. I don't know. I don't know how much further you got to go down that rabbit hole before you find something more stressful. But I definitely understand high stress positions. I experienced them as a soldier, leading soldiers, especially in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's pretty stressful in itself. Um, so I guess my first question, Dr. Christie, really has to be is what happens to you physically when your body starts experiencing stress, both short term and long term? What's your body going to go through? Let's start with short term first.
That's a good question. And before we answer that, I'm going to just back up a half a second and talk about just stress in general. What is it? There's two types of stress: eustress, EU stress, and distress. So eustress is basically good stress. Even positive things can be stressful, moving, getting married, a promotion. Although positive events, they can be stressful. Distress is an event or situation that tends to have negative consequences, distressing consequences, if you would. So both good and bad stress can have an impact on the body. So in terms of what does happen to the body, we talked a little bit about this last time, is your body kicks into a stress response. Our hypothalamus in our brain and pituitary in our brain and our adrenal system, which our adrenals sit on top of our kidneys, they get activated. You have release of hormones, and at the level of the adrenals, you get the release of norepinephrine, epinephrine, which is to gear you up to run from the tiger. It causes the heart rate to go up. It causes the respiratory rate to go up. It shunts blood to your muscles. It prepares you for action. And in the short run, it helps you to move. It helps you to do what you have to do to deal with the situation. In the long run, though, chronic exposure to stress eventually depletes the adrenals, not necessarily to the point where you have a clinical deficiency where a lab value is abnormal, but relatively speaking, for example, cortisol levels will go up and up and up, and then they become depleted. It becomes depleted relatively. And cortisol is important. It helps regulate blood sugar. It helps with vascular tone, so it helps regulate blood pressure. It helps prevent inflammation. So over a long period of time, when you have relative depletion of cortisol, you get what's called adrenal fatigue. You'll start experiencing like brain fog. It's hard to concentrate. You feel tired all the time. You'd be prone to respiratory infections and autoimmune disorders. You'll see people with chronic pain like fibromyalgia develop. Increased risk of heart disease, increased risk of diabetic or blood sugar problems regulating your fluid balance. And so the electrolytes can get affected. So it can have a deleterious effect over the long term if there's not periods of time where your body can restore. The adrenal system needs to restore itself in order to function optimally. If you think about being in Africa and you watch a gazelle being chased by a predator, the whole group will run. And if you're lucky, you're not one of the ones that get eaten. But when they stop, they shake, they're kind of shaking it off, and they need a period of time where their system can reset. So that if they get chased again, they can ramp up and run away again. It's the same thing with us. We need time to reset so that our adrenal system can reset itself.
Hmm. And so, literally, being exposed to stress over and over, I think you called it a chronic stress environment or
Mm-hmm.
exposure.
Sure.
That can lead to some pretty serious health problems down the road if you continue it without a break. So my next question then is, so like we said, you're an ER doctor. It's hard to get more stressful than that. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you find a way to manage and mitigate that stress so that you are getting that constant, all right, so now um I go let my body reset during this time, then it's back to work. How do you find time to do that?
Yeah, it's obviously in the moment it's not easy. My shifts are 12 hours long, and sometimes there isn't a break. So what happens in and around my work is important. When I come home from work, especially if I haven't had a minute to breathe while at work, when I come home from work, I intentionally do something that's restorative, whether it be take a bath or listen to soft music, something that's not stimulating. Or I'll pull out my art and I'll start doing my art, do some deep breathing, something to kind of dampen down that stress response, to slow things down. But equally important is to build into your schedule on a weekly basis, at least once a week, if not more, downtime. So you don't take your day off and run a bunch of errands and call that downtime or a day off. You literally need to intentionally have downtime where there's no demands. You're not trying to catch up on something. You're not running errands. You're not, being super mom or super dad or running in a million different directions, because then you never get a chance to reset. You need downtime, and it has to be scheduled, otherwise it'll get pushed aside. And that's something I was really bad at doing because um, I'm an equestrian and I like riding horses. And so on my days off, I'd be working at the barn, doing stuff with the horses. And although it was fun, it was still not restorative. I didn't build into my schedule restorative time. So over time, I began having more and more physical ailments, physical problems, and worsening depression, worsening anxiety, because I never was able to reset my adrenal system. So everything gets out of whack. Your cortisol levels, like I mentioned, your aldosterone levels, which helps with fluid management. It's a secondary source of sex hormones as well. So you find problems with libido and energy, and I mean it's global. It's a global problem. So you need restorative time, and I'm guilty or have been guilty of not taking it, but I guarantee you I do it now, and it's crazy because I enjoy my work now. There was a period of time when I was so depleted that I hated going to work. I hated it. I hated every second of it. I felt anxious going because I knew it was going to be a long, grueling day. I was exhausted coming home because it was a long, grueling day. And I never felt rested. I was tired all the time, irritable, until I shifted and pivoted and started taking, the advice that I'm teaching other people, doing it on myself.
It's interesting you say that because I laughed because it's like you're speaking directly to me. And you know me, Dr. Christie, I love to work. I love my work. I love my company, and I just love to work. It's in my nature. I guess I don't know. But it's not just that I love it. I'm one of those people. I feel extremely guilty taking a break. Because I feel like there's always one more thing I should do. And when I take a break, it's like I just feel so guilty. And
You're speaking
so,
to the choir.
right? So, I mean, how do we get over that? Like, obviously, that's some sort of lie, right? Because there's no reason to feel guilty for taking rest because taking rest is so important. I actually just wrote a blog post on the importance of taking rest. And I had a mentor call me literally after that got released and was like, when are you going to start taking your own advice? And it's like, that wasn't for me, that was for other people. That's just how much of a hypocrite I am, I guess.
God recognized that as humans we need restorative time, so he built the Sabbath into our week. It should be honored as a day of rest, literally, from labor.
It should be a priority. Like, it needs to be a priority, like you said, because if I don't set especially, working from home, like, it's amazing, it's awesome. However, it comes with, its challenges, because my office is literally 10 feet away. And so, oh, I forgot to send that email. I can just run back in my office and send that email real quick. But the problem is that sending one email turns into rebuilding my website, which turns into 12 hours of working when I was supposed to just spend 10 minutes of working. And then before I know it, my wife's coming in and asking me if I'm coming to eat dinner because it's time for dinner. And this is actually a true story. This happened a few months ago. And that was my day off. I wasn't supposed to work that day. I actually had other stuff planned, and I didn't even cancel it because I didn't realize I was creeping into its time. And so, I mean, I just blew off all other plans. And it all goes back to just, I forgot to do something, and I felt guilty for not doing it. So I came in to do it. And then that led to another thing, like we talked about. I have ADHD, and that led to squirrels. And I chased the squirrels, and I ended up spending all day doing it. How do we get past that guilt? I'm sure you, especially you being a doctor, I'm sure you feel that guilt. Um, how do you get past that?
So there's a couple of things. I want to address the fact that you need to be intentional about it, and not and prioritize downtime. You need to intentionally put it in your schedule and prioritize it. So if you had an appointment, say, with a meeting with someone, that would be a priority. You would meet with that person regardless of what other things needed to be done. So you need to meet with yourself, and it needs to be a priority in your life. Because if you don't schedule it and you're not intentional about it, just what you described will happen. It'll get filled with something else. The next thing you know, the day is gone and you haven't recharged. So there's an intentionality behind it. And then how do you get rid of the guilt? You do it anyway. Feel the guilt. Okay, so you feel guilty about it. Then you ask yourself, do I want to partner with guilt? Do I want to partner with guilt, or do I want to partner with restoration and wellness? You can partner with guilt all you want. Is it benefiting you or anyone else? Probably not. So you need to fire guilt, basically.
So it's a choice.
It's a choice.
The fact that I feel guilty is my choice, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I know people will say, oh, but you don't understand, my husband this, or my wife that, or my kids this. It's your responsibility to set boundaries with people. And they may not like it, and that's okay. Their opinion of you is none of your business.
Dr. Christy dropping some hard truth on us. I don't like it. Because she's calling me out.
I guarantee if you don't build it into your world, something physical, emotional will take you down. Your body can't go on indefinitely. You'll get sick. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've seen it time and time and time again.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. And so I want to ask this question, which really is kind of off topic, but you're so amazing. I know you'll humor me. One of the studies, this is really old, and the research has probably changed because research changes more often than a baby's diaper. But back in the day, they used to talk about how career soldiers, our life expectancy, my life expectancy, is significantly lower than the general population, and they've identified it's because of stress. And what they were saying is that my body became so immune to being in a constant state of what you were talking about, that fight or flight, because every day, literally every day in the military is stressful. And I'm convinced they do it on purpose, but that's besides the point. every day is stressful, whether you're in combat or not. And that stress gets so ingrained into our life and our lifestyle that once we retire and take that away, it acts as a detriment to our life. What would you say to that? And are you aware of that study, or are you aware of studies that contradict that or go against it?
So I'm not familiar with that particular study, but I can address the phenomenon. I know as a physician, I've experienced that myself, kind of in that heightened state of stress on a daily basis, at work anyway, where it became normal to feel abnormal,
Right.
normal to be in that heightened state of fight or flight all the time. So much so that I would kind of argue it's almost like an addiction, because then when I would be off work, I would be bored out of my mind because I wasn't getting that adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Doctors also have a decreased life expectancy, probably largely as a result of the stress and that the chronic stressors kicking in that fight or flight response on an ongoing basis. So you habituated to it in the sense that it became normal to feel that way, but it's not normal to be in that state all the time.
Hmm. Right. So again, it comes back to just choosing to manage it to the best that you can. Because I know as a doctor, like, you can't choose when you're, saving someone's life basically, or not. So it's like, okay, so this is my downtime that the hospital has given me. I have to be very intentional and very purposeful with how I use that time, and that's what's going to mitigate those effects basically to an extent. I'm sure it still does some sort of permanent, or not permanent, but long lasting damage to you over time. Um, Ultimately, still decreasing your life expectancy. That's just part of the nature of the job, I guess. But I mean, when you get that intentionality with it, it's going to help you drastically in the long term. Basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I've learned to say no. There's always more shifts to be worked, and I, I work as a locums doctor now. I'm not affiliated with any one particular hospital, so I travel in where there's need,
Mm-hmm.
and there's always need. But I've set a cap on how many shifts a month I'll work, and I stick to it.
So that kind of leads me to my next thing then. Because right now we're talking about stress in the workplace, right? What about interpersonal stress? Stress you put on yourself, or stress that comes from family members. Um, is that a different type of stress? And like, does it affect you in a different way? Um, or is stress and it affects you all the same way no matter where it comes from?
Yeah, stress is stress. You have the same physiologic response to it, whether it be interpersonal or work related or driving in traffic, like you mentioned last time. It activates that same response.
Okay, so now would dealing with it then would, like, say there's something going on with my kids that's stressing me out. Would managing that stress be the same as managing the stress from work?
So again, it's about intentionality and choice. Work stress, you can only do so much on the job. You try and take your little breaks where you can regroup, and you set your day during the week where you can, rejuvenate. Sometimes interpersonal stress has a lot to do with boundaries and expectations.
Mm.
And I know personally, I've struggled with allowing people to walk all over me because I'm nice and I don't want to offend anybody or hurt
You're
anybody's
the
feelings.
nicest person in the world. So you are the nicest person.
But there comes a time when you have to set boundaries. It's not only good for you, it's good for the people you're interacting with. It does nobody any favors to bend to a demand when you don't want to, because that just builds resentment and other problems. you know,
Mm-hmm.
and setting boundaries, no is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify it, and you don't need the other person's buy-in.
I've never thought of it that way. That's very true. You do not.
You don't need to justify it or, try and get them to agree with you. No is no, and that's a boundary, and you're entitled to have boundaries with your kids, with your
Absolutely.
spouse, with your friends,
Even with your work.
with your work, with yourself. I think,
Ooh, yourself. Talk about that.
yeah, I mean, like you were just describing, getting scrolled away and doing work on your day off, and the whole day went away. I mean, that's a boundary problem with yourself. You let yourself steamroll you out of having some restorative time.
I said talk about that, not include me. But I mean, you're absolutely right, and that is something I've identified. Like, I really need to work on is setting boundaries, not just in my personal life, but in my professional life. Because I'm contrary to popular belief, I am a people pleaser. I love to make my clients happy, and so when they need me, I jump, and that's kind of a problem, especially in my relationship with my wife, because she wants my time as well. So,
And you're communicating that it's okay to have your time when
mhm.
it's, you're not being clear.
Right. So I want to transition a little bit, Dr. Christie, because we are quickly running out of time on this episode. So I want to talk about some management techniques for stress. And I know personally one of my big ones is exercise. And one of the things, especially in my coaching program and when I'm working with my clients, it's one of the big things I like to focus on is physical shape, especially physical endurance. Because one, I believe leaders should be fit regardless, because it's that communicates to people, even though we don't realize it communicates to people. But there is also physical resilience, maybe, if you will, to stress and anxiety that comes from being physically fit. At least I feel like there is. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think exercise is crucial. Exercise has been shown to be as effective to manage anxiety and depression as taking a pharmaceutical prescription.
Wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And are you talking about like intense exercise or just getting out and going for a 10-15 minute jog?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be intense. It's just a matter of moving, getting the oxygen flowing, getting the muscles moving, getting the breathing going. It doesn't have to be intense. In fact, if all you could do is 8 minutes, then so be it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow. And the big thing for me is it's a good, easy way to get a sense of accomplishment about my day, because, you know, I know I can run for 10 minutes. Like, so I'm going to go run for 10 minutes, and then good. I won something. And I mean, we laugh about it, but that's at least for me, that's very important. And that's like, you know, I'm sure, I don't know, a very popular keynote speech given by Admiral William McRaven at Texas University graduation. He talks about making, if you want to
make
change the
your
world,
bed.
make your bed,
Yeah.
right? And that's 100% real. That's 100% true. What he talks about, that's one of the reasons we are taught to make our beds every single day, and it absolutely works. Getting up, just making your bed, that starts your day off succeeding at something. Which again I find is key to creating that mental space, I guess, if you would, that makes me more resilient to stress and anxiety throughout my workday.
Yeah, exercise is crucial. It's one of the things I encourage in my program. In addition
Nice.
to what we talked about last week, staying hydrated and the nutrition and the sleep, exercise is in that importance level as well.
Now, one of the things I experienced in the military, and I not so much in the civilian world, and I don't know if it's because I learned how to manage it, or I just don't have that level of stress in my life anymore, is not being able to shut off or shut down. Um, and I'm sure you've experienced this being an ER doctor of where you get so ramped up on what's going on at work, even when you get home, even the next day, you just can't shut down. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah, most definitely. You rehearse all the cases that you saw during the day and go to sleep thinking about it, dream about it. Um, yeah, that's why you need to pick an exercise of some sort, whether it be literally physical, um, or some type of meditative practice, to retrain your brain, because your brain is just it's gotten used to firing in this high gear state all the time. So you need to have checks and balances to help it have permission to slow down.
Right. And so, and I'm right there with you. Like you get home, you're still thinking about it. You go to bed, you dream about it. You wake up, you're still thinking about it because you dreamt about it all night, and you just can't escape. And ultimately, when that happens to me, I feel like I didn't sleep in 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's literally almost physically painful at that point to just like, stop. And so I think that's one of the biggest problems as leaders of companies are going to face is like that they can't shut their brain down from the problems that they're facing on the job. And it's just, like you said, you got to practice some sort of mindfulness technique, get some physical exercise, practice something that allows you to de-stress and just get your brain to stop focusing on the problems at work and
Yeah,
allow yourself to relax.
I think you hit a key word there, and that is focus. You have to intentionally shift the focus.
Right.
That's where doing like where I might engage in that brain dump exercise that I mentioned last time, where I dump out all the stuff that's going on in my head that I can't stop thinking about. And I give myself 2 minutes to indulge, and then I pivot and I shift
Mm-hmm.
gears and I intentionally move in a different direction, and it may involve exercise, it may involve, for me, artwork, it may involve calling a friend, um, something that's unrelated to work.
Right. So then my next question that kind of leads into my next question then is one of the things I've found in myself is I have to keep a very detailed calendar. And the reason I've learned I need to do that is because if I feel like I'm losing track of time, then I feel that's when I really start to feel stressed out. Like, oh, I'm not getting done. I'm not accomplishing my goals or whatever the case may be. When it's not true, I've just lost track of my time. So I've learned that I need to manage my time very strictly and very intentionally in order to keep from feeling that stress. Is that a pretty common thing, you think, or is that unique to me?
I have a question for you. What does it mean if you don't get everything done?
It means the world. My world was literally going to collapse around me if I don't. No, I'm being facetious. Um, but that's how I feel. I feel like I've not been productive, and that just kind of leads back towards the guilt thing, which you've already told me is my decision to feel that way. Um, so
So,
um,
so maybe this is a belief system that you hold, that you need to uh, rise to a certain level of accomplishment in order to be okay.
I would agree with that. Yes.
And I would propose that you are 100% okay just being, whether you do another ounce of work in your life or not.
I might be okay, but my business won't be okay. But no, and okay. So fair point. But my question was about time management, and is time management um learning how to correctly manage time, is that a practice that just benefits me, or is that a practice that can benefit everyone listening?
Yeah, no, I think time management is important. Having a schedule, having
Mm-hmm.
tasks for the day. Of course, you don't want to be so unrealistic and pack the schedule with so many things that you're setting yourself
Right.
up for failure, or at the very least give yourself permission to turn it off at a certain time, or to give yourself permission not to get everything on the list done. But yeah, time management is important.
Absolutely. And it's funny. And I appreciate you calling me out because you're absolutely right. That is definitely something I need to work on. And I think the reason I need to work on it is what I'm about to bring up, which is burnout. Burnout is one of the, in my opinion, most common and destructive things that can happen to people. We talked about it a little bit last week in quiet quitting. Um, what are some signs that you know of that your stress is getting to the point that you're about to achieve that burnout level, and once you achieve that burnout level, what's going to happen to you mentally?
I know one of the hallmarks of burnout is feeling like you don't make a difference, that your efforts are fruitless, and kind of developing a sense of hopelessness and overwhelm, tasks that you are supposed to do. And I would argue that the tasks and the work in and of itself is not the cause of the burnout. It's the lack of intentionality around the de-stress downtime.
Mm, fair enough. Fair enough. So, um, can you explain a little bit in detail what burnout means? Just assuming people don't have never heard the term before.
So I couldn't give you a clinical definition of burnout, but it's a state of being where you develop maybe some apathy, lack of engagement. You start to disconnect from people at your work, people at home, begin to have feelings of self doubt, self criticism, feel like your role is unimportant, that you're not accomplishing anything anymore. It's kind of an all or nothing way of thinking, um, but it leads to decreased work satisfaction, increased absenteeism, um, so a general sense of I don't know, apathy. Really is what I think
Yeah.
of when I think of burnout.
So, and is burnout a form of depression, or is it just the next step on its way to depression?
That's a good question. I think it can be a sign of depression, that perhaps there's an underlying depressive problem that's contributing to those feelings of burnout. But I think burnout in and of itself is its own entity that can lead to depression. It's not necessarily, you don't necessarily have depression just because you're burned out. And being depressed doesn't necessarily mean you're going to become burnout. It's like they're two
Right,
independent,
right,
they can commingle, but they're independent issues.
right. And so I just asked that because um, the way you describe that is the like in the military we have a very high suicide rate, and we do a lot of suicide ideation and prevention, awareness and stuff classes and just all this stuff. And I've had quite a few friends commit suicide, which so I've actually become very kind of passionate about the topic. And I know one of the hallmark of kind of emotions, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, of people that are legitimately suicidal is that they just don't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were describing in burnout, which led me to think about, okay, so if that's where you can go from burnout, then is burnout your next step towards depression, which is your next step towards suicide, which, leading you down this gigantic catastrophizing rabbit hole,
Yeah,
basically.
totally. Uh, yeah, left unchecked, you can continue to spiral down.
Right. And so how do you deal with burnout once you've hit that level? Because burnout is ultimately the worst case scenario where you've let the stress of your work just get you to the point to where it's just like, I quit, basically. And so once you hit that point, is there coming back from it?
Yeah,
Or is it
definitely. Yeah, there's definitely coming back from it. Um, I'll give a little personal story. So in 2019, I hit that maybe a combination of midlife crisis and burnout, where work was such a burden to me, and my level of disconnect was so high. I'd go to work, I was just kind of showing up and going through the motions, but I kind of felt like a human robot, like devoid of
Mhm.
emotion. I became more and more flat and more negative in my thinking, which led to feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, suicidal thoughts,
Mhm.
and deepening depression. So I could have stopped the spiral earlier on when I started recognizing some of the signs. Um, and how do you combat it? Well, sometimes you need counseling, sometimes you need medication, and most of the time you need to have some positive experiences that offset that sense of dread and monotony and burden of work, if you would. So
Mhm.
I felt like all I did was work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep, be stressed out, sleep, get up, barely make it. It was just this vicious pattern where I had nothing to look forward to. I didn't build anything in my life to look forward to. I
Mhm.
was just trying to get by and get through it and get through the workday so I can get to a day off. Why it was so important to get to my day off, I don't know, because I didn't do anything restorative for myself at that time. Um, but there weren't enough positives to outweigh the stress of work. And the expectations I put on myself to always be doing and achieving and accomplishing, uh, you know, wore me out.
Right. That's insane. And so, um, what, if you don't mind me asking, diving a little deeper into this story, is what ultimately made you realize what was happening to you, and what brought you, what exercise did you use to bring yourself out?
So I was at the point where I was so clinically depressed that I actually had to seek treatment in a residential facility because I was that unsafe with myself. Um, and that dedicated time to not working and not having demands put on me gave me a lot of time to reflect and think and ask myself, what did I really value in life? Because I was just floating seemingly aimlessly. Uh, and I had to get honest with myself. What was valuable? What was important? And I kind of came up with the idea of freedom, that I really just wanted freedom. And and I looked at that deeper. What did that mean for me? Freedom meant no debt, no guilt, more time. I was largely guilt ridden and driven by the expectations of other people in my life. Um, I was so busy either working or doing something. I felt like I had no time for me. And then I had a student loan debt that was hanging over my head for 20 years that I felt like an indentured servant to, because how do you pay for your student loan and have live at the same time? So I became very intentional about getting free. So no debt, no guilt, more time. I decided to be more aggressive paying down my student loan. I decided I wasn't going to be driven by what other people thought anymore, and that I was going to actually temporarily change careers. So I went into telemedicine just to get out of the ER for a period of time, and I moved to Florida. Now, I'm not saying you have to move somewhere to, find yourself or reinvent yourself. That's where my path led me. And I literally worked as minimum as I could. I spent a lot of time at the beach. experiencing nature, a lot of time doing art, and a lot of time really getting fine-tuned with what was important in life. And I did a values exercise, and the top 5 values for me is authenticity, transparency, spirituality, family, and peace. So if my actions weren't bringing me closer to my values, then I changed my actions.
That is, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that, because that is very vulnerable of you. And I got a lot of value out of that. And I think the most important thing to take away is it doesn't matter who you are, man. It doesn't matter how much education you have. It doesn't matter what level of job you have. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. We are all susceptible to the exact same things, right? You are the professional and you still had to seek help. And that like, I don't say that to be discouraging or denigrating or anything. Like that lifts me up. It's like, man, thank God I'm not the only one. Right? Like, so I mean, because I feel so everybody's like, oh, you're a soldier, you're tough. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm still human. Like things still hurt. I still bleed. Like, you know, it still sucks. So,
Right.
like the fact, like, thank you for literally breaking that stigma away of look, like if it can happen to a professional, if it can happen to a soldier, if it can happen to a police officer, a fireman, a doctor, a school teacher, it can happen to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be scared to go get the help you need just because you feel like, oh, well, I'm a doctor. I shouldn't, you know, if I go get help, everyone's going to look at me bad, or it's going to hurt my practice because, I'm supposed to be the one helping everyone with this. No,
Mm-hmm.
actually, like you're just a human that has a special set of skills. Your special set of skills do you absolutely no good, right? That's one of the things I've learned. It's so easy to give people advice and tell them what they should do. It is much, much harder to give myself that same advice and do exactly what I tell other people to do. For some reason, that's just hard. And that may just be for me, or that may be the case for everybody. But that's definitely how it is for me. So I mean, just thank you so much for being vulnerable and explaining that the way you did. Um, Most valuable piece of information I've ever put on my podcast, right there, hands down.
I'd like to add one thing too. I came to the realization that my wellness was my responsibility and mine only. And the reason I say that is because I was in a relationship where I did everything. I worked a lot and gave a lot because my mindset was, well, if that person can see how hard I'm working, surely they will step up to help. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. They didn't step up to help because I was doing everything, right? And
Right,
so my expectation was, well, if they see how hard I'm working, I'm going to get some help from them. And I came to a realization that the only person who can make a change here is me. Like, I don't have to be super person. I don't have to do everything. And it's okay not to do everything. I gave
right.
myself permission not to feel guilty.
Back to guilt. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Dr. Christie. Thank you so much um, for sharing that. And like I said, people, like, her program is solely based in, well, I just want to throw this out there. If we get cut off randomly, it's because there is a lightning storm um, coming my way. I can see it, and it's pretty awesome. Anyway, um, these are the squirrels I'm talking about because I really want to get up and go look at the clouds. But this is why I think you're so powerful as a doctor, um, especially in the world of therapy, because you've experienced all the things that you're trying to help people with, and you know what worked for you, and if it worked for you, it'll work for other people. Maybe not everybody, She may not be the right answer for Joe, but she might be the right answer for John and Amy. So I mean, it's not a one size fit all. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. But your passion and your heart and your soul went into creating this program that you have to help people with anxiety. And we talked about a testimonial last week at the end of the show where you had a client that had just years and years of crippling anxiety and just couldn't function on a daily life. And then just after 3 sessions with you, felt so well that he went to Disney and didn't have a panic attack while he was there. And that, I think, is a soul testament to just the level of care and professionalism that you've put into building your program. And I think it's absolutely amazing. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up, Dr. Christy, and I'd love for you to share just how people can find you and learn more about your program and learn more about you and learn how to get in contact with you if they need help from you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So my website is doggonedepression.com. You can visit my website. My contact information is on there. If you want, you can download for free top 5 tips to feeling better. And look forward to hearing from you. You can always email me. My email is Christy, CHRISTY, at doggonedepression.com.
That is amazing. And of course, I will have all the links to Dr. Christy, all her socials, all her websites, all her everything she has, her email address. You will find in the show notes and in the descriptions on all my socials, on my website, any place that this podcast shows up, you are going to find links to Dr. Christy and her amazing work. But that this is wrapping up this episode, guys, but don't worry, we have one more week with Dr. Christy where she's coming back to talk to us even more about dealing with the workplace. And now we're going to kind of combine the two, stress and anxiety in the workplace. And we're really going to, especially for you leaders, next week we want to give you tips on just how to identify these things in your employees, basically what we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks, how to identify those in your employees, how to put safety protocols, if you would, in place to help manage it, and then ultimately what to do when you realize that your employee needs professional help. So as always, Dr. Christy, you get the final word. So give us one more piece of wisdom before we go for the week.
I want to say that you are enough. Just being you.
I love it. You're enough. Never forget that. It's not about what other people think of you. I absolutely love that, and I believe that 100%. Thank you so much, Dr. Christy. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you again next week. And everybody, thank you so much for listening and joining us. And don't forget, lead like a champion. See you next week, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Renowned Leadership Podcast. We hope you gained some really valuable insights from our conversations with top industry leaders and experts. And don't forget to head over to renownedleadership.com to download our free checklist that is specifically designed to help military veterans transition from the military to their new corporate jobs. You can find it at renownedleadership.com. We're also so excited to announce our partnership with the Career Winners Circle, a top executive coaching company with incredible resources for their clients and top-notch coaches. You can learn more about them at careerwinnerscircle.com. And if you're interested in taking your leadership skills to the next level, don't forget to schedule your complimentary coaching consultation with me at renownedleadership.com. And I really hope you guys got a lot out of today's podcast with Dr. Christy. I hope you enjoyed listening to her wisdom and all the things she has to share with us about anxiety. Next week, we're going to be talking about stress and the effect it has on us on our workplace and on our personal lives. We're going to be talking about ways to mitigate stress, especially in the workplace as leaders. And so I hope you guys tune in next week. Don't forget to go check out Dr. Christy at doggonedepression.com. Again, that's doggonedepression.com. Go check her out. She has an amazing program that's getting people results in months rather than years of the traditional therapy. So if you know somebody or you yourself are in need of getting some help with anxiety and stress and depression, highly recommend Dr. Christy. Go check her out. Again, doggonedepression.com. Of course, all her links are going to be in the bio, or the not the bio, the podcast show notes. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. It's going to be in the show notes. And so make sure you hop down into the show notes, check out all her socials, give her some love. And while you're at it, hop over to renownedleadership.com. I'm on YouTube at Renowned Leadership, Instagram at Renowned Leadership, Facebook at Renowned Leadership. So you can find me on all of them, especially LinkedIn at Renowned Leadership or Stephen J. Morris. And make sure you go follow me, give me some likes, and give me some love as well. I appreciate everybody's support. Love you guys. And remember, lead like a champion.